We're still doing VEX123. Eventually we'll move on to the next platform, but we're still on VEX123. So far what we did was we talked about programming the robot from the membrane keypad. On top of it, you've got 5 buttons, one of which is backlit, start button and indicator light. And this form of programming was limited to go forward 1 robot length, or rotate to the left, or rotate to the right, or make a sound. And then the middle button was the start button, and that indicator light changes color to match certain conditions. For instance, if you're fingering in a sequence, if you hit the turquoise or the cyan go forward button, then that indicator light lights up to match that color. If you're doing the left, it lights up to match the blue, and so forth, magenta to go right. And then it's white under certain conditions, it flashes, it's yellow under certain conditions. It has a built-in speaker, and that's where you get the sounds. And it has a USB-C charging port, and underneath, remember, it has 2 drive wheels, and it skids along on 2 bumps that are perpendicular to the drive wheels. So I pointed out that the plane surface being smooth and clean is very important. So we went through programming it, a sequence, and then once you've punched in the sequence of buttons, then you hit the middle button to start. It runs until the program's done. Then we jump to the VEX coder. Now the VEX coder is this little handheld device that is wirelessly connected to various devices, but primarily it's going to be wirelessly connected to the puck, the little VEX123 robot. And you have 31 unique cards that you can put in slots 1 through 10 to create a program. It's limited, but much more powerful than just using the membrane keypad. The next thing we're going to do is talk about VEX code 123. Now this is a little bit more complex, but also much more powerful and has a lot of really cool features. So this is VEX code 123, which you can download free from the VEX website. There's also a VEX code Go, and then there are other levels of VEX code based on the hardware platform, because obviously you don't want instructions or commands blocks, instruction blocks, you don't want them popping up on the screen if you can't use them for that particular hardware platform. So you'll find that the VEX code is context sensitive. You'll see that even more in the next one, VEX code Go, using the VEX Go platform. VEX code 123. So this is the 3rd method of programming that little puck. I think that's why they call it 123. There's 3 ways. This is the 3rd, and that's a VEX code. And VEX code is common for the most part through all of the VEX hardware platforms. However, with each increasing complexity of the platform, there are more instructions and more capability. So VEX code 123, you could say, is the stripped down version down to just what you can do with that little puck. So you open up, well, you download it from the VEX website and open it up, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to connect to the robot. So you go up to the upper right corner and click on the robot button, and there's a button that says connect. Now I don't have any VEX 123 robots powered up right now, so it's not going to find any, and this is done wirelessly. But if you had a classroom with 10 VEX 123s in it, and you can manage each one individually with a special classroom app that you can download onto your Android or iPhone, and you can connect with them one at a time, and you can rename them. That way you at least have some way to identify them, and you can add identification to each puck maybe with a little sticker. Nonetheless, so if I click on connect, it's going to go looking for robots. I don't have any powered up, so I'm going to cancel this, and we'll just pretend that it came up, I connected, and now I can actually run a program on that robot. So I'm going to take this instruction and add it on, drive forward for 1 step. Now at this point, if I was connected to the robot over here, okay, then I could hit the start button right next to it and it would run the program. And what it would do is it would drive forward for 1 robot length. I can also do millimeters. So I could go forward from, I'm not sure what the smallest increment is, but let me try it. Okay, it took 0.01 millimeter. I'd be surprised if it actually moved. To be honest with you, I think there's stepper motors in that thing and not servos, but nonetheless, you punch in how many millimeters you want. It's more likely that some larger fraction like 10.5, but this is something for you to experiment with. This is a good experiment for the kids, you know, to rule out a space on a piece of paper and have them test it. Nonetheless, I'm going to go back to steps, which is a robot length. So this would go forward for 10.5 robot lengths, and then the robot would stop. It wouldn't go in robot length increments. It's just going to drive forward until it's gone 10.5 lengths. Then it's going to stop because we don't have an end of this program. I would have to add something else below here to end the program. And we're not teaching a program class here. I'm just showing you how easy this thing is to use. So I'll put it back to, we'll say 2 steps. Now, once you hit start up here in the upper right hand corner, it's going to run that program, and because this is the last step, it's going to execute and go forward 2 robot lengths, and then it's going to stop and stay right there, but the program's still running. So you need to hit the stop button, and then you can go back here and add more steps. Actually, blocks, instruction blocks. You could do that while the program's running, but you're going to have to stop it and then start it again to basically reset it. So drive forward for 2 steps, then let's turn right for 90 degrees, and then let's drive forward for 2 steps, and so on. So if I hit the start button right now, it would go forward for 2 steps, stop, it would rotate 90 degrees to the right, and then it would go forward for 2 steps. So you see, you could string some more together here and you could have it go in a square. Now, if you have one in front of you right now, you should do this. So rather than go into the programming, I just want to give you the basic start. I'm going to open up, I'm going to say discard. I don't want to save it. So I'm going to open up one that I made just a minute here ago for demonstration. And this one would be the beginning to detect if the object in front of the forward-facing photo eye is red, green, or blue. So when started, I'd go up here and hit the start button, and it would drive forward continuously until it found an object, meaning the forward-facing eye, reflective, it sees an object and stops. It could also be until it hits a hard surface, a hard stop, and then the accelerometer gets a sudden shift in inertia and tells you that you've crashed, okay, and then it would stop, or you could find a line. But we'll leave it an object. Okay, once it finds the object, it stops. Then, if the eye detects that it's red, then it turns right for 90 degrees. There's no else here, so it's if then, or if green, left 90 degrees, or if blue, do a 180 and turn around and face the other way. So here's just the beginning for a little project that you could do where you put, say, on one end of the playing field, remember there's 6 squares, and you could put 6 objects in there and have one that's red. And so this would be part of the code that you would use to start the robot. It would drive forward until it found an object. Then it would go, in this case, it didn't find red, green, or blue, so we would then have to add more code below this. So if it doesn't find red, green, or blue, then what? That's up to you. I'm just showing you how simple this goes together. I'm going to do a little demonstration here for you. This is the playing field and the puck, and it has a program in it, the program that you can see on the right side of the screen. These styrofoam pucks were purchased at Hobby Lobby. They're slightly under 3 inches, about 2 7/8 inch in diameter, and they come like 6 in a pack. Okay, so I've got 3 of them, and I've got them setting in the robot length squares, and I've got the robot aimed at the first one. So if you look at the program, it says when started, repeat until not I found an object. So it'll repeat until it doesn't find an object, and then it's going to go back to the beginning. So if it finds an object, which it does right now, so once I start this program, it immediately found an object. So repeat until that's true, because it's found an object. It's not found an object. Okay, so I found an object, then repeat until not I found an object. Now it sounds like I'm repeating, and actually when I run the program you'll see. So in the second, repeat until not I found a project, drive forward for 1 step. If detected crash, then stop project. Well, it's not going to detect a crash until it hits something immovable. So it drops on down. So it pushed that first styrofoam disc 1 robot length forward. Okay? Now, drop on down under the first blue, drive forward for 1 step, drop on down, drive reverse for 1 step. So it backs up to where it's at right now, and then rotates to the left for 90 degrees, goes forward 1 step, rotates to the right, and now it goes back to the beginning. So if you look at the little arrow over there to the far right that rotates up, it goes back up to the repeat until not I found. So it's going to repeat that until all 3 of those styrofoam discs have been pushed forward 1 square or 1 robot length. And now we go back to the repeat if I found an object. If I found an object, it drops down, but if it doesn't find an object, then it drops into the last set of blue instructions. So it turns right, back towards the right where it started from, drive forward for 3 steps. So it's going to move back to where it started. So that number 3 there is mandatory because there's 3 styrofoam discs. If you were doing this with 4, then you would have to have 4 in there. And keep in mind, I'm starting 1 space in from the right side. So you can move this all the way over to the right side. The reason that I don't is because I've noticed if that puck rubs against the fence, it biases its direction, and then it's all screwed up. Later on in this demo, you'll see somehow, because of the playing field or some condition of traction, friction, it gets a little off, and eventually it gets messed up. Another thing that happened was due to an issue with traction or something, it didn't push the first disc as far as it should have. So now I'm going to run the project. No object. Object. No object. See, it's a little off now. So I pushed it sideways. Sideways. Sees an object when it should not have, so now it's lost. See how it keeps getting further and further out of whack or position because of variations, and a lot of that is the cracks in the plane field. You can see where it's joined together. I think that has a big influence on that. That really wraps it up for VEX123. Remember, this is not a course on how to program the VEX123. It's just an introduction to show you what you're getting into if you happen to choose this as your starting point. And this is not a bad starting point, even for an age group greater than what's shown here, grades pre-K plus. And if you notice the progression, the next platform, which is what we're going to do next, that's VEX-Go. So the next video will be starting with VEX-Go ages 3 to 5. So K plus, I'm assuming, means kindergarten, first and second grade.